There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt like there's music in the world only your heart can hear? Maybe there was a time when the sun set and you stood quietly, not sure if it was longing or hope, brushing up against the inside of your ribcage. A moment when you longed for something you couldn't name, maybe the kind of home your body remembers, even when your mind forgets. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep once felt too. Before he was a prophet poet, before the name, before the longing became language, there was simply a boy listening to the dark, wondering if silence could hold him, or if the emptiness would carry him somewhere further. If you close your eyes and feel the weight of the blankets, or the hush that presses round your room, you might sense the old invitation pressing against your heart. The one that calls us to slip under dreaming's door and walk barefoot into the mystery together. Rumi is not a monument in stone, nor a faded painting on a wall. If you let yourself fall softly into this story, he'll meet you quietly as a companion, someone who knew hunger so deep it reshaped the days. Someone driven, night after night, to open a door inside himself escape could never satisfy. To find out if the whisper is real, tonight, you and I are not only here to hear about a poet from so long ago, but to remember how it feels to become the poem, unfolding, noticing, letting the cool breath of the night fill us up so gently that we barely notice we're breathing just a little deeper, a little slower. There is no rush in dream spaces like these, only the patient rhythm of a soul remembering itself, and as the world quiets and your own story slips into its own kind of freefall, I'll walk with you, word by word, breath by breath. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to believe or know or strive. You just have to stay for a moment with me. As we step into Rumi's dreamscape, you're not only learning about a life. You're drawing close to something that lives inside you, a presence, curious and tender, that's always longing to come home. This is a journey of warmth, permission, and gentle curiosity. So let's begin not as seekers but as rememberers. Let each breath be a bridge, a soft turning toward the center of your own dreaming. That's all Rumi ever searched for. That's all any of us are really searching for. Tonight, you're right where you're meant to be. Let's walk. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt a flicker deep inside? A memory that doesn't quite have words. Maybe there was a moment traced by moonlight when you looked at your own reflection and wondered who was really watching. A silence under your skin, soft and bright, like dawn waiting to happen. Sometimes you find yourself longing, yearning for something older than joy, deeper than understanding. Something like belonging. Like presence. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep once felt too. He wasn't always the voice of silk-lined poetry or the mystic whose verses travel centuries. Once there was a boy standing on drifting sands, looking up at a sky filled with moving lamps. He belonged to his time, but his soul, it stretched backwards, forward, everywhere at once. If you close your eyes right now, you might hear it. A question above the world, a softness asking, what do you really love? Maybe you've wandered through a day where your heart felt heavy, where you wished someone could just look in and see the gold underneath your armor. Rumi once wandered like this too. His longing was not for answers, but to dissolve into a peace that doesn't really require them. Tonight, let's settle in, let's breathe together. Though the day might still be clinging to your shoulders, let it slip, let it go. The night is gentle here. My voice will travel with you, not in front, not behind, but right at your side. Think of this not as learning, not as listening for knowledge. Think of it as a gentle invitation to rest where you are, perfectly unfinished, a whole world within a single breath. Rumi's dreamscape wakes up whenever you grow quiet. So wherever you're lying, however your heart is winding through the hours, you are welcome here. This is for you. There is a door inside us, a thin, shimmering veil. Rumi found it not through striving, but through soft surrender, even when life's winds tossed him between shadows and sunlit fields. As we travel tonight, you might feel a sense of comfort or old longing or even a tender ache, and that's good. It's sacred to ache for more. It's holy to wait for yourself. You do not have to know any facts about Rumi to find yourself in his story. All you need is this simple willingness to pause, to feel, to trust the slow warmth, as if every word is a hand reaching back in time, tracing your own outline in the dark. Tonight we begin not at the surface, but in the quiet depths where real change happens, where the dream is not just for sleep, but for waking up inside your life. Let's walk together and see what dreams may find us. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt the edge of sleep blur into something like a memory the world forgot to tell you? Maybe there was a time when you woke before anyone else, alone with a feather of longing, the hush of your own room trembling with questions nobody could answer, a moment you couldn't quite name. But it left fingerprints on your heart. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep, once felt too, not a poet carved in stone or frozen in lines, but a pulse in the night, a boy who whispered to the dark, hoping some magic would whisper back. It's strange, isn't it? To think that a story this old could echo with your own midnight thoughts, but that's the soil we plant ourselves in tonight. A story that wants nothing from you, not your perfect words, not your brightest intentions, just your gentle, honest breath right here. Maybe you have your own unanswered questions, or ache for a kind of love that's quiet. Not loud, more like a lantern than a wildfire. Maybe you've felt the weight of questions pressing at your chest, a sense that there should be more or less, or something you can't quite put into words. Tonight there's nothing to fix, nothing to chase, just presence and poetry. Just the hush of your own soul reflected back. Let this hour be a walk in the starlit orchard of Rumi's dreamscape, the place where silence is not empty but full of beginnings. You don't need to reach for wisdom. Just let it arrive like dew on morning grass. Remember, this isn't about history. This is about the breath behind the history, the part of you that glimmers awake just before you fall asleep. For Rumi, longing was not a weakness but a lantern. The ache, a compass. He walked the earth tender and awake to mystery. So settle in, breathe out what you carried here. Let stillness unfurl its gentle roots through your chest. Tonight, we cradle the story of Rumi. Just as gently as you are cradled by sleep, there will be lines that feel like mirrors, and pauses that feel like rain. Let them all belong. Softly now we begin. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Maybe you remember a night when your mind just wouldn't turn off, when you stared at the ceiling, searching for meaning between the lines of your own thoughts. Sometimes you have that ache for something more, but it feels just out of reach. Have you ever felt that? Maybe there was a time when silence in the dark felt lonely, but also alive. A moment when you longed for something you couldn't name. A softness, a stillness, a next breath that felt like home. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep once felt too. There's a gentle confession here. Not all of us are born knowing how to find peace in the dark. Not all of us know at first how to trust the silence between the notes, the quiet hum between our thoughts. Yet we keep listening, because deep down under the noise we sense a deeper melody calling us home to ourselves. Rumi, too, once felt that ache. Long before he found the words that now move between continents and centuries, he was just a soul like you, learning to breathe in the dark. Not famous, not yet the poet whose verses would heal and awaken sleeping hearts for generations, but simply a gentle child listening to the rhythm of his own longing. There's something honest, almost shy, in the way the soul first starts to search. No thunderclaps or spotlight, just the quiet question, am I alone? That's where every sacred story begins, and tonight you're not just a listener. You are the companion, the co-walker, the kindred spirit Rumi once searched for in his silent hours. Maybe tonight, with the city humming outside your window, with worries softening, your body sinking deeper into the mattress, you can feel a part of yourself waking up in the quiet too. So if your mind drifts or your breath slows, you're not leaving the story, you're entering it. Because every line you hear, every pause, every echo, it's a part of your own soul's longing for presence in the dark. Welcome to Rumi's dreamscape, a night just for you to remember what's been waiting in the quiet all along. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight, The Modern Mystic is not a lesson plan, it's not a history, it's a quiet doorway into Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep. We're not here to simply learn about Rumi, we're here to meet a part of ourselves whispered awake by his words. Have you ever felt a silent ache deep in your bones? A longing you couldn't quite explain, a secret hope. Even when the world felt heavy, Maybe there was a time when loneliness pressed in and you craved something not outside but inside, a space to breathe inside your own heart, a hand to hold in the dark, a way to belong to something more. Rumi once felt that ache too. His name is ancient, but the ache is utterly modern. It moves through time like a river beneath the surface. He walked dusty paths you'll never see, breathed in the hush before dawn, just like you wondered if love could really be trusted, or if there was a place in the world for that deep-seated softness within. This isn't about knowing poetry. It's about feeling it, letting the hush land with you as if someone somewhere has been waiting to notice your quieter dreams. And so tonight, as the light fades, let yourself settle in. You don't have to strive or solve or be anyone but who you are beneath it all. Maybe you just need a gentle voice to walk with you through memories and mysteries. A companion in the velvet hours where the soul's questions get softer. Let's remember. Rumi wasn't just a mystic, a poet, a figure in dusty books. He was a human, tender, searching, sometimes lost, often in awe, someone who needed kindness and who found it again and again in the small, invisible places. He learned that presence is a kind of poetry, that rest is not the opposite of living, but part of breathing in the miracle we've already become. Tonight, let his dreamscape be not a story of back then, but a warm mirror for the quiet now inside you. Every breath in, every breath out is a new line of your poem, whether spoken or silent. So let's begin, not by rushing ahead, but by honoring the hush that brought us here, together, present, unhurried, in the gentle field where your soul meets Rumi's. Nothing is expected of you here, except to be as you are, soft, curious, almost drifting, touching, through these words, the part of you that has never been lost. As you listen, let your breath slow, let the outside noise sink away, feel the invitation, gentle and steady, to come home, not just to Rumi's world, but to your own sacred space within. A welcome to the night's unfolding. Welcome to a story of longing, a story that even now remembers you. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt a longing that sits behind your words, something you can't quite name, only feel as a gentle ache inside your chest? Maybe there was a time when the night felt endless, when you reached for comfort in a world that seemed just out of reach, when even the sound of your own breathing felt like it was echoing across some vast, invisible distance. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep once felt too. There is a memory lingering between dusk and dawn, where you are neither fully awake nor lost in dreams, but tender, open, held by soft hands you cannot see. Tonight we'll step into that memory together. Not to study, not to judge, but to drift, to listen, to remember what it means to be both human and far more than human. To breathe together in the dark, as you lay down the weight you carried through daylight. As you settle, let your body grow heavier, let your breath grow slower, let your mind become as light as gentle clouds crossing a moonlit sky. Rumi, they say, moved through the world like a question, bare feet against the dust, longing for something real, deeper, truer. He searched for the kind of beauty that warms the bones and settles the heart. The kind of love that stays long after the candles have gone out. He is not the distant poet with perfect words. He is a friend at your door in the blue hours, a cup of sweet tea in trembling hands, a lantern swinging through the hush of midnight. He rests where you rest and listens where you cannot speak. Maybe tonight you feel far from yourself. Maybe the world outside has grown loud or silent or strange. Softly here, you're allowed to put down your armor, the clever thoughts, the masks, the anxieties lined up like tiny guards between you and sleep. Rumi's presence asks nothing of you except honesty. And maybe a pinch of hope that what you need will find you here, not through effort but through grace. So breathe, let the surface thoughts drift. Here nobody asks you to become better. Here you are simply allowed to be. We cross the threshold together, into the body of the night, into the dreamscape of someone who was always searching for home, and by searching found that the home was already hidden in his chest, a small, shining ember, waiting for breath to turn it gold. Remember a moment from long ago, a sunset that left your heart aching, not from sadness, but the strange sweetness of wanting. That feeling is where we begin. Rumi walked in that pulse, learned to shape words around it, learned to call the longing itself a kind of love. As you are right now, restless, tired, still awake with questions, you are closer than you think to the place he spent his whole life seeking. Imagine the two of you on a quiet hill beneath new stars, not speaking, not trying. Just breathing, feeling the night, letting it all go moment by moment until you remember what it feels like to be soft again. This is not the story of a man who achieved greatness, or a mystic who solved the riddle of being human. This is the memory of someone who learned to befriend their longing, and by befriending it found peace. Tonight, we will follow his footsteps in the sand slowly, together, learning to listen for that gentle invitation that never leaves you, not even in sleep. Let's begin. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt the world falling away, just enough to hear the softest wish under your own breath? Maybe there was a time when the room was silent, but inside, everything moved like a restless tide. Maybe you wondered if the longing for more, for freedom, for connection, for a belonging so true it would hush the ache at your center, was anything but yours alone. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape once felt, too. Before he became a name whispered in poetry shops and meditation circles, he was someone who carried longing like a lantern, moving through his own darkness, lighting small corners of the heart just to see who answered. Sit back. Sink in, let the day slip away. Tonight the world can wait on the other side of the door. Here, we listen the way wildflowers open when no one's watching, slow, honest, unafraid to feel. Imagine. There's a place inside you that's older than memory. A hush, a pulse, a sky spread wide. Maybe you know it only in glimpses, just enough to make you ache for something you can't name. That's what Rumi touched. That's what he left as a breadcrumb, so you could remember lying here that the soul's language isn't made of words but wonder. Can you feel it? That subtle longing, present even now, the yearning on the edge of sleep, asking, is there more? Am I alone in this? Rumi asked too. Every poem, every breath, an answer whispered back. Maybe you've walked through your life feeling out of place or too much, or carrying questions that no one else dared to answer. Maybe you look out a window sometimes and wonder, where is home for a heart like mine? Tonight, through Rumi's dreamscape, we travel not through years or battles, but through the space between heartbeats, the quiet grace blooming beneath uncertainty. He was a friend of the unknown, a lover of the slow unravel. And when the night grew silent, he listened for the secret music woven through all things. If you're tired, let your guard down now. If you're restless, let that wander here. If you're searching, let the search soften. There is room for all of it. Together we linger at the threshold, not to fix or force, but to open wide to find what's been waiting all along. This is an invitation not to learn but to remember. We will move gently, drift through memory and meaning, feel the hush Rumi carried. Maybe we'll find not answers but a new way of walking the world, softer, braver, certain that whatever we seek is seeking us too, so lie back. Let your breath slow, let every little part of you that is weary or curious exhale. I'll meet you in the delicate space where story becomes a spirit and Rumi's dream becomes your own. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight, on The Modern Mystic, we drift into the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep. Not as a scroll through history, but as a soft reflection in the water, a mirror to that ancient place inside you that still remembers, so let yourself slow down. Feel your body here, right now in this space just for you. Close your eyes or let them stay soft and heavy, whatever feels more honest to your night. Have you ever felt that ache from nowhere, longing for something you can barely name? Maybe there was a time when the world outside your window grew dim, and a gentle humming deep inside called you home, not to a house but back to yourself. A moment when you wished to be seen, not just in your achievements or the words you know, but in those raw, silent places that rarely make it to daylight. That feeling, that yearning, that's what Rumi's dreamscape once felt too. Not a legend sculpted in marble, but a heartbeat in the dark. Someone who spent nights awake, listening, hoping for answers, longing for something more than explanations or rituals, curious if light could seep into his life simply by being open enough. He was not born awake or wise or remarkable in the way old stories sometimes say. Instead, he learned to sit with the questions, sometimes crumpled in prayer, sometimes laughing at his own foolishness. He wandered long before he belonged. So tonight, you do not have to bring anything, no history to prove, no perfect words to recite. Just your softness, the willingness to drift along the edge of sleep, where dreams gather and old truths slide in like moonlight under your door. If your breath gets heavy, if your mind drifts, if something stirs or aches or grows quiet, let it be. This night is not for learning, it's for remembering, for feeling the soul behind the story, for letting Rumi's dreamscape slip quietly into yours like mist on the riverbank. You don't have to figure it out, only let it come as it will. Softly, slowly, let's begin. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt like the moon outside your window was somehow meant for you? Have you ever stood under a soft sky and heard, in the hush between your thoughts, a song with no words, a thrum deep inside your bones, like a memory you can almost remember? Maybe there was a time when you looked for meaning in the faces around you or in the spaces between your steps. Or maybe you've tasted longing, that sweet ache, not just to know, but to be known, to be felt, to belong in the pulse of life, a moment when you longed for stillness, and for some secret language only your quiet could hear. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep once felt too. He came from a world of dust and spices, a place where caravans rattled under the swirling sun and holy men watched the sky for signs. But he was never made of titles or teachings. Underneath the swirling robes, the incense, the ancient prayers, there lived a hunger. One you might recognize, the hunger to touch something real, to feel, to dissolve the boundaries between self and soul. You know, sometimes all we carry is confusion, a longing that aches like a question inside the chest. Rumi felt that too. Before he became poetry, he was just another heart, searching for the sound behind silence, for music inside the hush of sleepless nights. What if your confusion, your longing, was an invitation? What if the edge you glimpse in shadow and dream was the beginning of a doorway, not an ending? Come closer. Breathe slow. Let the hush find you in the dreamscape of Rumi. There are no shoulds, no shame, no gates to guard. Tonight there's only presence and the tender weight of being alive. So wherever you are, in bed, in the quiet ache of your room, eyes half closing, let this be a gentle invitation. A breath, a pause, a chance to listen for the soul beneath your stories. Let's wander in. Slowly, let's walk beside Rumi's longing, not as strangers but as fellow travelers. You might find that the story you're about to hear is already tucked, like a secret, under your own skin. Listen for what moves, let your mind rest. Let your breath soften and let your heart lie open, like morning grass touched by the curve of dawn. Tonight you don't have to become anyone. Tonight you get to remember everything you already are. And so the journey begins. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Rumi's dreamscape poetry and presence before sleep, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt that small flutter between heartbeats, right before surrendering to sleep, when the world goes soft, and you sense something vast opening within you? Maybe there was a time when the ache behind your eyes wasn't from tiredness, but a longing for meaning, and for presence, for that feeling that life is shimmering just beneath the surface. It's a moment when you longed for home, but couldn't quite name where home was, something softer, deeper, waiting underneath the conversations and plans and quiet chaos of living. That's exactly what Rumi's dreamscape, poetry and presence before sleep, once felt too. You don't need to know stories or poetry to feel his presence. You just need the hush of this moment, the simple willingness to receive, maybe. Tonight you yearn not just to understand, but to rest in something bigger than your own thoughts, to become the sky. Instead of the weather passing through it, Rumi is more than words on ancient parchment. He's the slow dance between longing and belonging, the hush between candlelight and sunrise. He lived long ago. But his soul was always searching, quietly, joyfully, with the spirit of a traveler who keeps finding new rooms in an endless house, each one filled with a different light. There's a softness to those who let themselves long for the invisible. Rumi let that longing shape him, like the rivers shape valleys, or how moonlight carves gentle shadows on the wall as you fall asleep. His life didn't begin